Welcome back to the Stocks Update. I hope you're all doing well. In today's video, we're diving into a stock that's been getting a lot of attention lately, Lucid Motors. If you've been tracking the electric vehicle EV space, you already know Lucid is one of the more polarizing names in the market. Whether you're a believer in the company's long-term potential or you're skeptical about its current trajectory, this update will cover everything you need to know right now, from the stock price movements and short interest to market sentiment, technical levels, institutional moves, and more. Let's get right into it. As of the latest session, Lucid Motors LCID saw a modest gain of 2.45%, pushing its stock price up to $2.45. Throughout the trading day, we saw a low of $2.40 and a high of $2.60, indicating a bit of intraday volatility. Now, while that may not sound like a massive move on the surface, it's important to understand what's going on behind the scenes. Lucid struggled a bit in the early hours of trading, largely due to short sellers targeting key resistance levels, particularly the $2.50 strike price. This price level is becoming a major psychological and technical battleground between bulls and bears, and short sellers appear to be doing everything they can to suppress Lucid's price below that point. So why is the $2.50 level so significant? It comes down to open interest in the options chain and the role of market makers. At the $2.50 strike, we're seeing heavy open interest for call options, meaning many traders are betting the price will close above that level. On the flip side, short sellers and potentially market makers have a financial incentive to keep it below $2.50 to avoid having to pay out those calls. Currently, there are 2K call options at the $2.20 strike, another 2K at $2.50, and a whopping 26K at the $3 mark. In total, this equates to 2.2 million shares that would need to be covered if Lucid's price surges above these levels, which could trigger a gamma squeeze. And let's be real, those holding short positions don't want to be forced to buy back at a higher price. Interestingly, there's been no major news coming directly from Lucid itself today. No new SEC filings, no product launches, no updated delivery numbers. That means all of today's price movement is being driven by macro factors and investor sentiment, rather than company-specific updates. That being said, the broader market environment is currently in Lucid's favor. Major indices like the Dow Jones, S&P 500, and NASDAQ have all posted gains 2.38%, 2.5%, and 2.89% respectively. These gains are largely attributed to increased clarity around tariffs and expectations for potential interest rate cuts from the Federal Reserve. According to recent comments from large financial institutions like J.P. Morgan and Bank of America, the Federal Reserve is likely heading toward a more dovish stance in the upcoming meetings. For the next Fed meeting scheduled on May 7th, the current forecast suggests a 29.2% probability of a 25 basis point rate cut. Just a week ago, that probability was sitting at only 19%. Looking ahead to the June 1st meeting, the market appears much more confident that a rate cut is likely, and for companies like Lucid, which fall under the category of high growth and capital-intensive businesses, lower interest rates are generally a strong tailwind. Rate cuts reduce the cost of borrowing and boost investor appetite for growth stories, especially in the EV sector, which is highly sensitive to interest rate fluctuations. Let's shift gears for a moment and talk about one of Lucid's most underrated strengths, its cutting-edge EV technology. Recently, the CEO of nvda published a chart comparing the charging curves of Lucid's Gravity SUV with Tesla's Cybertruck. As expected by many in the EV community, Lucid came out ahead. From the early days of Lucid's public debut, even the most vocal bears have struggled to dispute the company's technological edge. Whether it's battery efficiency, vehicle range, or charging speed, Lucid consistently outperforms in those areas. What's held the company back isn't product quality, it's been lackluster marketing and limited brand partnerships. So far, Aston Martin remains Lucid's only notable licensing partner. But with a renewed focus on strategic branding and outreach planned for 2025, we could finally see Lucid begin to unlock new partnerships and brand recognition. Now, let's dive into one of the more alarming trends. Short interest is on the rise again. Recently, there was an increase of 1.44 million shares shorted, which means that currently 25.01% of Lucid's free float is being shorted. That's approximately 303.99 million shares, a significant amount by any measure. To add even more intrigue, some brokers are actually paying people to short Lucid. The cost to borrow minimum is currently at minus 0.22%, an unusual and rare scenario. This signals a possible coordinated effort, or at least strong incentives being offered to push the stock price lower. And Lucid isn't alone here. Similar activity has been observed with companies like Sophie, suggesting that certain brokerages or institutional players may be targeting specific growth names in their short strategies. Another concerning data point from today: large-scale institutional buying has dried up. Since Lucid's Q1 earnings release, there had been a noticeable uptick in institutional accumulation. However, today tells a different story. The only large transactions recorded were sells, with the biggest being a $1.76 million dump. Now, keep in mind, this doesn't mean institutions are suddenly turning bearish on Lucid long-term. It could simply be short-term profit-taking or portfolio rebalancing. But in the short term, it adds selling pressure and weighs on momentum. Despite the increase in short interest and the lack of institutional buying, Lucid still managed to close green. That's likely due to algorithmic trading, which seems to be supporting the price action. When computers and high-frequency traders take over, they can override retail sentiment and even counterbalance institutional flows. Additionally, on the dark pool front, there were several large trades executed above the $1 million mark, particularly at price points of $2.52 to $2.55. Based on trade sizes and timing, some of these could have been swing trades or short-term flips, buying low, selling slightly higher for a quick gain. It's currently trading just above the exponential moving average MR, which is a positive indicator for short-term momentum. The 50-day simple moving average SM sits at $2.54, and historically, whenever Lucid closes above this level, it tends to run up about 30% in the following sessions. Meanwhile, the 100-day SM is at $2.58, so breaking and holding above both of these would be key bullish signals. Support is sitting near $2.33. If the stock falls below this, we could see some more downside pressure. Options data also paints an interesting picture. As of today, there were 712K call options and 573K puts, suggesting a fairly balanced sentiment among traders. However, two large transactions stood out, one for a $2.50 put and another for a $2 put, both set to expire in the near future. These could be hedges, speculative plays, or part of a broader strategy by institutional players. Interestingly, 51% of all options activity today was neutral in nature, meaning there was no clear bias toward bullish or bearish momentum based on volume alone. This reflects a wait-and-see approach by the broader market. Lucid remains one of the most intriguing, yet heavily scrutinized, EV plays on the market. Despite having superior technology, the company continues to face challenges when it comes to branding, partnerships, and institutional support. Add to that a high short interest and some signs of manipulation, and you have a very volatile, but potentially rewarding, investment opportunity. We're all now looking forward to Lucid's next earnings call. That will give us more insight into their production outlook, financial health, and strategic priorities for the rest of 2025. If the company can execute on its marketing push and begin expanding partnerships, it could be a very different story by this time next year. For now, Lucid is still up 12.78% over the last month, which is a positive sign of short-term strength. But be cautious, volatility is part of the ride with this stock. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. Your support helps us continue to bring you in-depth market analysis. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.